Well, hello and welcome everybody to Monster Monday. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Now, think about it. The animated corpse has been a staple of horror and monster stories, at least as long as, ever since Percy Shelley's teenage wife first wrote her draft for Frankenstein. Uh, and if you go back into historical literature, I mean, it goes way back beyond that. And you could even say, like, potentially the first literary or spiritual, whatever, scriptural recording of a zombie might be considered Lazarus being called forth from the tomb. Now, I know. In D&D, zombies are a little bit different. And we're going to talk about that because tonight, on Monster Monday, for October 5th, 2020, we are going to discuss the long and storied history of zombies in D&D, all the way from when they first were introduced into the game up until today. And there's some surprising zombie-like creatures that we will encounter along the way. So let's go ahead and get on with this, shall we? All right. This comes up because in 5e, in the Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure, they introduce a special kind of zombie called an ash zombie. Basically, it's just a zombie, except that it's covered in fine dust, and when you hit it, it sprays a cloud of dust and it causes everybody to cough. Nothing, nothing special. It's just an undead zombie. But zombies move with a jerky, uneven gait. They wear the grave clothes that they were buried in. Most of the time, they're made from humanoid remains, although the flesh and bones of any creature can be imbued with a semblance of life. Now, the difference between a zombie and a skeleton is that a zombie is mostly a complete corpse. So it's got sinew and skin and muscle and, you know, perhaps some desiccated organs and whatnot. Skeletons are just the skeletal remains with no skin on them. Uh, and then they they rise up from their graves. The zombies rise up from their graves with all the imperfections they had at death. So if they were killed brutally in, like, let's say a battle, they have all of the wounds that they had when they died. If they were ravaged by disease, their corpses are still showing the scars and effects of that disease. If they were, you know, if they were killed by wounds from, an animal attack or something like that, they still get all those wounds. So they are just hideous and horrible looking things. All right. Now, sometimes where you'll find these is you might find these as dark servants. Uh, Necromancers may raise up corpses, either corpses that they uh, obtain specifically for the purpose, or perhaps corpses of those foolish adventurers who dared to come into the sanctum of the necromancer's laboratory and were struck down by his magic and then raised up to serve. Uh, they follow orders, simple orders. They're not smart, so you gotta talk to them using small words a little bit, you know. So they need they need to be told what to do, and they will mindlessly obey what they are told to do until they're told to do something else. So they have no vestiges of their former life. They don't remember anything. They can't speak. They can just understand the language that their creator uses. They take the most direct route to any foe, and so they can be kind of comical in a really eerie, weird kind of way. They can, if they are told to go and attack something, they don't care what's in the way. They will just make a straight line for whatever it is. So if there's a ravine in the way, they will just walk and fall off the cliff. If there's a river in the way, they will just go try to cross the river and get swept downstream by it. If there's some sort of obstruction, they will try to climb it or beat it down or get through it. They're very, very, they're just one single-minded in that respect. And now they can be taught, okay, attack that guy, but not that guy. And so they will be able to distinguish, if their creator tells them to, who's a friend and who's a foe, and not attack the foe or not attack the friends, but attack the foes. But that's about the extent of what zombies are able to do. So you might get the impression that zombies are kind of boring. And of course, zombies are undead, so they don't need air. They don't breathe. They don't eat. They don't sleep. They don't need water. They're immune to disease. They're immune to mind-altering spells. They can't be charmed, um, and they are susceptible to all of the things that most undead are susceptible to. So they're not, we've already established, they're not terribly bright. They don't have special defenses against most things. The one thing that in 5th edition zombies have going for them is they have, which we will see when we get to 5e, they have this ability that when they are knocked to 0 hit points, um, they make a saving throw. And if they pass the saving throw, they're not dead. They're still at 1 hit point. So you may have to knock a zombie down 4, 5, 6 times before it actually stays down. The saving throw is kind of based on how much damage it took, and there's a formula that you do for that, which we will look at when we get there. Okay, now normally I have 1 page of zombie features by edition. Tonight, there's actually 2 pages of it. So zombies have been around a long time, and there are a ton of different variations. So let's go take a quick peek at the zombies in throughout the editions. And we are going to go all the way back to the Rules Cyclopedia. This is for original D&D. This is a rule set that came out in the 1970s. And this is what we were dealing with. So zombies have an armor class of 8, which is very poor armor class back in those days. And in fact, I think they still have an armor class 8, which is still a very poor armor class in new editions. 2 hit dice. They move 30 feet per round. They attack with a claw or a weapon, 1d8. They have a morale of 12, which means that they don't make morale checks. They never falter because of that mindless capability. Mindless undead humans or demi-humans. Empty corpses animated by evil magic user or cleric. Now, here in the original game, zombies were always humanoid. Demi-human is the old term that they used to use for races like dwarves and elves and halflings and such. So they were humanoid, which now fall into the humanoid races in the later editions. Now, in this same edition, there is a resource called the Creature Catalog, which came out for the same rule set of D&D. And here we get our first interesting difference. There is a Topi. Topi has an armor class 6. It's a 3 hit die monster, and it moves 40 feet per round, and it attacks with 2 claws. So Topis are undead human or humanoid creatures similar to zombies, but before they're animated, their corpses are shrunk until they're only 2 feet tall, giving them a dark, wrinkled, leathery skin. And that process is known only to certain primitive tribes. They are more agile than normal zombies. They roll for initiative as usual, and they can leap up to 6 feet when attacking. Any creature struck by the claws must make a saving throw versus poison or fall victim to a venom, which acts like a slow spell and acts for 1 or 2 turns. Now, there was a time unit in this rule set called a turn, and a turn was 10 minutes. So that means that you are slowed for 10 to 20 minutes. You either make your save or, you're not going anywhere fast for a while. Non-edged weapons inflict only half damage on topies, although a successful hit with such a weapon will knock a topie off balance, making it unable to attack the next round. And they're immune to mind-affecting sleep, such as sleep, charm, and hold spells. And clerics have the same chance of turning topies as of turning wights. So they are a little tougher than your average zombie, but they are still zombie-like creatures. Okay, now we move to AD&D or First Edition. And in AD&D, Armor Class 8, move of 60 feet out of combat, which means they move only 20 feet in combat. So here we get the slow shambling zombie. The original zombie could move 30 feet. This guy can only move 20. 2 hit dice. They attack with their slams. They always lose initiative, so they're slow. And they deal 1d8 damage when they are hit, and otherwise they're pretty much like the original D&D counterparts. But now let's take a look at the Juju Zombie, which is also from AD&D. Juju Zombie has an armor class of 6, so a little bit better. 3 plus 12 hit dice. Okay, so it's a bit tougher guy. 1 attack for 3d4 damage. It requires a +1 or better magic weapon to hit, and it has some magic resistance. So they're created by magic users who drain all the life levels from human or man-sized humanoids by means of an energy drain spell. And they're programmed like regular zombies, but they're superior in every way. Better armor class, they move quickly, even underwater, because they don't breathe. Now, I think that's kind of interesting that they say that the reason they move more quickly underwater is because they don't breathe. The reason you move slowly underwater has nothing to do with whether you breathe underwater. It has to do with the resistance of the medium. But we're not going to get into that. It's physics, not D&D. And they climb like 6th level thieves and attack with great force as if they were 6-hit die monsters. Now, the reason that they say that is because your attack rolls for monsters back in this edition were all predicated on how many hit dice the monster had. There was no such thing as having, the monsters didn't have stat blocks with strength scores and things like that. So you didn't get your pluses and minuses from their ability scores. You got their attack rolls based on their hit dice. So, because they exist in part on a negative material plane, they can only be hit by +1 or better magic weapons. Piercing or blunt weapon attacks do only 1/2 normal damage. Cleaving weapons do normal damage, and they're unaffected by all magics which affect the mind. Fire has only 1/2 normal damage. They're also immune to poison, electricity, magic missiles, death, and cold spells. So fire does 1/2 damage. Acid and holy water have full normal effects. And it's equal to a specter in terms of returning. of turning it by a cleric. And so yeah, and then they also introduced the monster zombie. Monster zombie are of course corpses of monsters, and that's something that has kept going. Uh, Now here they all have hit dice and they all do 4d4 damage, but in later editions, as we will see, there's a lot more variety in monster zombies. Okay, now we get to second edition. Second edition, tons of options for zombies. You have a common zombie, which is the normal, everyday garden variety zombie. You have the monster zombie, same thing as we just looked at, zombie made from a monster. Juju zombie, a zombie lord, and a sea zombie. Okay, so we've looked at the other two, and there's not a whole, or we've looked at the others, and there's not a whole lot of change from first edition to second edition. Second edition. So let's take a look at the zombie lord. It's a living creature that has taken on the powers and abilities of undead, formed on rare occasions as a result of a raise dead spell gone awry. DMs, if you are not mining old editions of D&D to make unique and interesting things for your players, then you're not doing your job. There, I said it. You must be going back to old editions of the game and pulling things forward and throwing stuff at your players that they have never seen before. And the reason you do that is so that smartass player that thinks they are the rules lawyer and knows everything is like, no, you don't. Is I'm getting this from another edition, and you're going to deal with it. So shut up and roll your dice. That's why you go and mine this stuff from old editions. All right, zombie lords look like they did in life, except their skin is turned a pale gray of death, and their flesh is rotting and decaying. And the odor is so bad that how bad is it? The odor is so bad that the first round a character comes within 30 yards. They make a save versus poison or be affected in some way. So they can have weakness. Uh, the odor can cause disease. The character can lose a point of constitution. Uh, they can be subject to contagion. They're unable to act for 1d4 rounds due to nausea and vomiting, or they die instantly and become a zombie under control of the zombie lord. All right. So now, see, this is back in the day when DMs got to have a lot of fun at the expense of their players. It's like, you need to roll that d6 for me. Oh, it's a 6. Such a shame. Fred the fighter falls over dead. What? Says Fred's player. Yeah. And Wally the wizard notices something. Hey, Fred starts to twitch. And he gets up. And he pulls out his sword. And he starts walking over towards Wally the wizard. And he raises the sword up. Okay. All zombies within sight of the zombie lord are subject to its mental instructions, and the creature can use the senses of any zombie within a mile to learn all that is happening within a very large area. Once per day, the zombie lord can animate dead to transform dead creatures into zombies. So they seek out places of death as lairs, live in old graveyards at the site of a tremendous battle. And sea zombies, also known as drowned ones, are animated corpses of humans who died at sea. So pirates or mariners or naval uh, naval seamen who, you know, were killed in a battle at sea, they can become sea zombies. Uh, So drowned ones attack with weapons of typical sailors, short swords, daggers, hooks. belaying pins, stuff like that. They have an abiding hatred for living and attack them at any opportunity. Um, and then, yeah, so they congregate in loose packs similar to crews. Well, now also in second edition, we have the Coffer Corpse. Well, what is the Coffer Corpse, you might add? Well, armor class 8, hit dice 2, DACO of 19. Wow, it sounds a whole lot like a normal zombie. Well, it's a special kind of normal zombie. If you follow what I'm saying here, it's an undead creature seeking final rest. Always encountered on a stranded funeral barge, unburnt pyre, or the scene of some other incomplete death ritual. They look like zombies, hate life, and will attack any living humanoid creature which disturbs them. Um, as it says about their habitat, as an undead creature which seeks only to complete its journey from life, the Coffer Corpse has no social structure, has one overriding instinctive urge. As it was denied a complete death, so others shall be denied complete life. Wow. So it's a vengeful little cuss, is what it is. And then they just kind of attack like normal zombies. So, interesting twist on the zombie. Interesting idea of maybe how you would place a zombie in a campaign and what you could do with it. Okay, so lots of cool options that come out of second edition. Now let's go on and take a look at third edition. Third edition, we start to get really interesting things. Okay, now third edition is also where armor class changes. In original D&D all the way up through second edition, the lower the armor class, the better it was. The higher the armor class, the worse it is. Starting with third edition, we go to the modern system where the higher the armor class, the better. So this is something to keep in mind when you're looking at armor classes here. So they start giving us a whole range of stat blocks for zombies. This is also where third edition is also where monsters first gained complete stat blocks. So where you'll see strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma for the monsters, just like you do in 5e. So you have a kobold zombie, which is pretty much like a zombie, but it's got 16 hit points. Human commoner zombie, 16 hit points, and the sizes are different. Now, the reason they go with these is because this edition had some different rules. Your size modifier affected your armor class. Your dexterity affected your armor class. The difference between your size and your opponent affected your armor class. All this kind of stuff. So, the kobold zombie has an AC of 13. Human commoner zombie has an AC of 11. Then there's the troglodyte zombie with an AC of 16. And notice it's a little bit beefier. Instead of the 16 hit points now, it's got 29 hit points. We also come in with challenge ratings in third edition. So the kobold and the commoner zombie are challenge rating 1/2, and the troglodyte zombie is a CR1. And then you get bugbear zombies, ogre zombies, minotaur zombies, wyvern zombies, umber hulk zombies, gray render zombies. Gray render zombies. Okay. Well, to understand that, you would have to know what a gray render is. And a gray render is I believe that's a huge type of undead. So we're just going to do that gray render. Oh, it's a magical beast. Okay. So, yeah. Massive giant, stooped frame, gray hairless body, and broad shoulders, arms are long and sinewy. Okay, so, yeah, it's a zombie, one of those. It's the corpse of one of those raised as a zombie. Now, this may be one of my favorite and one of the most terrifying zombie-like creatures ever from D&D. This is from the Monster Manual 2 in 3rd edition. The Corpse Gatherer, Gargantuan Undead. Well, what is a Corpse Gatherer, you ask? A Corpse Gatherer is an animated graveyard empowered by a mean intelligence and a greed for more bodies. It exists only to increase its own size and power by devouring more dead bodies. It seeks corpses everywhere, from cemeteries to battlefields to scenes of natural disasters. It appears roughly humanoid, but its immense body is made up of corpses, tombstones, and grave earth. Ooh! So, it's gargantuan undead, 30d12, 195 hit points, speed of 40 feet, burrow of 10 feet, armor class 12. Its slam attacks plus 23 to hit. Damage 2d12 plus 18. Now it has special attacks of improved grab, ingest corpses, and swallow whole. Yeah, lovely. Strength of 34, dex of 7, intelligence 10, wisdom 11, charisma of 15, and a challenge rating of 19. Okay. Yeah, corpse gatherers feast upon dead flesh, but they are more than willing to create fresh corpses by slaying living creatures. Oh, nice. Corpse gatherer fights by attempting to pound its opponents into mush. From time to time, it also grabs troublesome opponents and stuffs them into its porous body. Here! If a corpse gatherer hits its own opponent's own size or smaller with a slam attack, it deals normal damage and attempts to start a grapple as a free action without provoking an attack of opportunity. Its grapple bonus is plus 39. Yeah, if that thing gets a hold of you, good luck getting away from it. If it gets a hold, it can try to swallow the opponent in the next round. Alternately, the corpse gatherer has the option to conduct the grapple normally or simply use its hand to hold the opponent. Minus 20 penalty on grapple check. Holy cow. All right. So, yeah, the entire graveyard just is getting up and walking around and trying to find more corpses. Can swallow a grabbed opponent. That is at least one size category smaller. Need not use its mouth to swallow, merely stuff the opponent into any convenient portion of its porous body. Once inside, the opponent takes 1d12 plus 12 points of bludgeoning damage every round from the roiling corpse's gravestone and other objects inside the creature's body. So yeah, this is like, yeah, this is a really, really terrifying thing. This would be a very cool monster in a late campaign, late in a campaign for something that is, dealing with undeath. So maybe you have like an enemy that's a powerful avatar of like some sort of evil god of death or something, and then it raises up the entire graveyard and throws the graveyard at the party in the form of a corpse gatherer. Now, see, aren't you glad that you now know that this exists? Your mind is spinning with all the wonderful and wacky things you can throw at your party, and still call them zombies. All right. So then 3rd edition also gives us the Tyrant Fog zombie. What is a Tyrant Fog zombie? They're wretched undead that are the remains of priests and worshippers of evil deities who've been struck down by the raw power of another evil deity. They're rotting corpses surrounded by lingering wisps of dark fog. Fog fills their lungs and trickles from their noses and mouths. Their eyes and sharp fingernails, as well as any exposed bone, glow with a dim emerald green light. Attack with their claws, spreading a foul disease that ended their mortal lives. Smarter and more cunning. Sickening cloud. Fog that lingers saps the endurance of creatures within it. Creature who comes within 5 feet must make a fortitude save or take 1 point of temporary constitution damage. Infective touch. The claws carry disease. Character wounded by a tyrant fog must make a fortitude save at the end of the battle. Success indicates the character fights off the infection. But failing that, now listen to the effects of this disease. If the character fails, he or she sickens during the incubation period of 1d4 days, taking 1 point of temporary strength damage at the end of that time. Each day thereafter, they make another fortitude save or lose 1d2 points of constitution and 1d4 points of strength. Character must then make another saving throw to avoid permanent drain of 1 point each strength and constitution. So yeah, Tyrant Fog zombies, they are bad. I mean, they're only a CR3 monster, but if the polyhedral polyhedral gods are against you and you're rolling bad, oh man, one of these can really screw you up. And then let's see. Okay, 4th edition. Where's zombie? Oh, come on, zombie. There you go, zombie. Okay, zombie is the animated corpse of a living creature, imbued with the bare semblance of life. Shambling horror obeys the commands of its creator. So, now there are different kinds of zombies, and of course, in 4th edition, everything is different than the other editions. We're just going to run through these. Zombie Rotter is a level 3 minion. Those of you who've watched this before or are familiar with 4th edition, you know that regardless of level, minions always have 1 hit point, and their only reason for being in a combat in 4E is to soften up the characters by you throw a whole mess of them at, maybe they get 1 hit in before they get hit, and or if your party doesn't have AoE and can't take them all out at one time, then several of them will be around long enough to beat on the characters a few times before they get knocked down. Okay, zombie rotters swarm the nearest living target and beat it to death. So a normal zombie is a level 2 brute. Uh, 40 hit points, armor class 13. It does slam for 2d6 plus 2 damage. And zombie weakness. Any critical hit to the zombie reduces it to 0 hit points instantly. Zombie tactics. 2 or more zombies attack a single foe. One of them uses zombie grab to prevent the foe's escape. So then there's a Gravehound, level 3 brute. It has Death Jaws, makes a bite attack against a target within its reach. It does 1d6 plus 3 damage, and it also has that weakness. Gravehound uses speed to overtake prey. When it dies, it makes 1 final bite attack against a living creature within reach. Corruption Corpse, level 4 artillery. Regeneration 5. If the Corruption Corpse takes radiant damage, regeneration doesn't function. So, Mode of Corruption hurls a black glob of necrotic filth. Deals 2d6 plus 3 necrotic damage, and the target is weakened. For Death Burst, the corruption corpse explodes when it reduced to 0 hit points. 2d6 plus 3 necrotic damage to everybody within the close burst 1. So everybody within 5 feet of it. Rotwing Zombie. This thing is a level 4 flying zombie. Ugh. Any critical hit reduces it to 0, so it's got that same weakness. Flying charge. When flying, the Rotwing Zombie deals an extra 2d6 damage on a successful charge attack. Alright, so then here's all of your different kind of zombies. A Chillborn Zombie is a cold aura, and it's a level 6 soldier. And a Zombie Hulk is a level 8 brute. And, they rise again. So now this is familiar to people, 5th edition zombies. This is kind of where it started again, or where it started. First time the Zombie Hulk drops to 0 hit points, you make a new initiative check. On its next turn, the Zombie Hulk rises as a move action with 44 hit points. So that was a little worse. And that one came back with half of its hit points when it was reduced to 0. Okay, now here we go to the Ash Zombie from 5th edition. Immune to poison, understands languages of creator but can't speak. Ash Puff. First time the zombie takes any damage, any living creature within 5 feet must succeed on a con save or gain disadvantage on attack rolls for 1 minute because of all the dust that comes flying off of it. And then they do slam attacks for 1d6 plus 1. But other than that, they have all exactly the same stats as a normal zombie. So the only thing that is, no, they do get that undead fortitude. So here's the undead fortitude in 5th edition. When you reduce the zombie to 0, makes a con save with a DC of 5 plus the amount of the damage taken. So if you hit it for 7 points and that knocked it to 0, it has to make a DC 12 con save or it can come back up again. So the way to keep these things from coming back up is to hit them with more damage than they are able to sustain. Their con is 16 plus 3. So if you can deal 24 points of damage to them, then he ain't coming back up. Because even on that 20, he can't make a con save of 24. Alright, Greater Zombie. Greater Zombie is a CR5 monster. And it's resistant to cold and necrotic. It also has turn resistance. And it makes 2 melee attacks with an empowered slam. Which means that the target takes bludgeoning damage and necrotic damage. So the Greater Zombie is a little bit tougher creature. Then you have your regular zombie. Then, just ask you to look at all the things that you have available to you in 5th edition. Remember the monster zombies from way back in the day? They're still here. So, but now they have full stat blocks. So, zombie, Tyrannosaurus zombie, ogre zombie, husk zombie. Now, some of these you have to be careful of. I believe this husk zombie, I think that's a plant creature and not an undead. So they call it a zombie, but it's really not a zombie. For purposes of what we're talking about tonight, zombies are the undead variety of zombies, not the plant created zombies like the yellow musk zombie, those types of things. We're not talking about any of those because that's a plant monster. This is a undead monster. So Greater Zombie, Ankylosaurus Zombie, Gorillan Zombie, Ash Zombie, Beholder Zombie, Yellow Musk Zombie, Frost Giant Zombie, Icewind Kobold Zombie. And then all of the kind of creatures that can create zombies, including a few of these, like yellow musk creeper and corpse flowers, which they don't create undead zombies, they create plant monsters that are called zombies. Okay, so we're going to go back here. All right, so lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different things that you can do with zombies in your campaign. So, if we're talking about the garden variety of zombie, using them in encounter, they are the perfect, you know, entree character to a campaign that deals with a lot of undead. Last week when we were talking about the troglodytes, we said troglodytes are great introductory characters for a campaign that's going to explore the Underdark. This is a great introductory monster for a campaign that is going to have as its main antagonist something to do with undead. Some evil god of death, some really powerful necromancer that is creating undead all over the place or is spreading an undead curse somewhere, you know, going up against a vampire eventually, whatever, a lich, something of that nature. So, because they are weak, we're talking about putting 5 zombies in encounters against 5 PCs. If you have 5 first level PCs, a group of 5 zombies is right on the border or right on the exact number that changes it from a hard encounter to a deadly encounter. So I consider that to still be a hard encounter, borderline deadly, because most adventuring groups, I think the way they build the encounter thing, they kind of fudge, thinking, okay, well, if you have players who are not gonna, make the optimal decisions, this could go pretty badly for them. But a lot of players, especially players who've been around for a while, they're going to start knowing, okay, the best type of thing to do at this point is, at this point in a round. And if you have a party that works together and they talk with each other during the combat, which I always encourage the party to do, I like to see what sort of tactics they come up with. Then, giving them a challenge that's a little bit harder than deadly is actually not going to be deadly. It might wind up being a hard encounter for them. So, if you have that same party, but their second level, 5 zombies would be a medium encounter. You want to make it a hard encounter, add a Dread Warrior. If it's a third level party, then 5 zombies are going to be easy. To make it a hard encounter, add a Ghast. And of course, those are all additional undead types of monsters. So now, how could you use zombies in campaigns? They can be the mindless service of an evil wizard or necromancer, be the long dead soldiers of some forgotten war animated by powerful artifact, simply dead and buried peasants clawing their way up through the graveyard of the church to ravage the town they once called home because of some powerful curse or an angry evil god. Um, they're a frightful enemy for low-level characters, especially if you send a swarm of them at them. And we already said, perfect introductory encounter for a campaign centered on stopping the threat of the undead. And if you think about it, it's right out of the George R.R. Martin playbook. Whether you have read the Song of Ice and Fire books, or at least as many of them as have been published now, George R.R. Martin, or whether you watched all of the seasons of Game of Thrones, then you know that the way that whole story kicks off is with the Night's Watch ranging north of the wall, and they come up to a village where one of their members saw all of the wildlings dead. They go back, and there's nobody there until corpses start coming out after the night watches, after the night watch rangers. Uh-oh, bad news. So yeah, the White Walkers are zombies of a sort in George R. R. Martin's world. Um, okay, reskinning the monster. Ash zombies and zombies in 5e, and we're just talking about the garden variety. They're very low level creatures. So, this is what I say: go and look back at the previous editions and get some inspiration. Get some ideas for what you could do to make these things more powerful. So, thinking back to the Topi from original D&D, the Juju Zombie of first edition, Zombie Lord, and Coffer Corpse of second, or that entire graveyard monstrosity of the Corpse Gatherer in third edition, you can find some really powerful undead, and you can put zombie skin on them to give higher level parties a unique challenge. So let's just say you wanted to throw a zombie at them that was a lot tougher than a normal zombie. Make them a vampire template, or no, make them put a zombie template on a vampire. So you remember that fourth level or that fourth edition zombie that regenerated and that would come back with half its hit points when you killed it the first time? Yeah, just take a vampire stat block, take away some of the spell casting ability, but give it those two abilities. Say that it's undead resilient or undead fortitude. That doesn't kick in until the second time you kill it. The first time you kill it, it just automatically comes back with half of its hit points. It just stands right back up the next round and keeps fighting. And then, it also regenerates. So it's clearly not going to be as tough as a vampire because it doesn't have all the bite, doesn't have the charm, doesn't have the spell casting, doesn't have all that stuff. But it'll be a lot tougher than a normal zombie. And, you can give it, the ability to do some more damage when it hits. Maybe it does necrotic damage when it hits you. So that's the kind of thing that you can do to make zombies more of a threat later in the game. Make it look like a zombie, make it smell like a zombie, make it shamble like a zombie, but make it fight like a vampire. Your players will absolutely love it. They will tell you that they hate you, but they will love the fact that you threw something at them that they have never seen before. All right. I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions on zombies, so I'm going to go ahead and run into the wrap up, and then I'll double check and see if there are any questions. All right, I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday. We've been talking all about the wonderful and wacky history of zombies throughout D&D. We have, in addition to this live stream that I do on Monday nights, there are 3 other live streams that I do every week. Sundays at 2 p.m., I do the Walker of Waterdeep. It's a planeswalking 5e D&D game. We are right now in Ravnica, and one of the PCs has been murdered and not coming back. And the rest of the PCs are trying to find them, and we left on a cliffhanger because another PC woke up paralyzed with some hideous undead thing over its bed, chanting some kind of ritual and carving up its flesh with a dagger. and because they were paralyzed, they couldn't do anything about it. Fortunately, the monk had a DC 30 or rolled a 30 on their perception check, and that meant that they heard something going on in the next room. So we'll see what happens when the fight engages. Sunday at 2 p.m. Saturday night at 7 p.m. we have just started. We just had our first session this past weekend of the Lost Mine of original D&D. So, if you're familiar with Lost Mine of Phandelver, I have gone through. I have replaced every monster in there with a monster from original D&D. I have built pre-generated original D&D characters for the players, and we are going through that story with those characters, and we are playing through that scenario. The idea is to sort of introduce um, the original rule set to the characters and see how much differently the game plays. Several of the players know this story. Several of the players have played through it in 5th edition, and that's fine with me because the point is not to, surprise people by what happens in the story. The point is to see just how much different this is when you use old rules versus new rules. Uh, and so they have already encountered some of those strange differences, like the fact that you roll d6 for initiative, and it's d6 for the entire side. So whichever side wins initiative, everybody goes first before the other side gets to go. Then on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. is the Sword Coast Chronicles. That is our love letter to the 5th edition published campaigns. We are right now on the road out of Baldur's Gate with their level 4 in the Tyranny of Dragons. They are traveling along in the same caravan with the Cult of the Dragon that are heading north. And we will see how that goes. So tune in Thursday nights for that. All of those are right here on this Twitch channel. Over on the YouTube channel, you will find all of the archives of all of the things that I do, plus all of the daily quick hit things that I do and not actual play streams. All right, well, that is going to do it for Monster Monday. I have been DM Gallibond. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I'll just sign off by saying to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everyone.